Did anything come out of this in your mind?
Nothing came out of this summit. It was a nothing burger. It was a shrug of the shoulders. But I will tell you, Anderson, my stomach turned when I heard the President of the United States characterize Vladimir Putin as his fabulously good friend. Vladimir Putin is a war criminal. He has directed soldiers to kill women and children and bury them in mass graves. He's kidnapped children. As we speak, the reality on the ground is that people are bleeding and dying all around Ukraine because Putin is continuing to bomb them. And at the front, he's continuing to pummel the brave Ukrainian soldiers who were defending the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, the town of Probovsk. And this war is continuing. There's no ceasefire. There's no deal. And the reason is Putin doesn't want a deal. He doesn't want peace. And the only way to convince him to stop this diplomatic rope-a-dope, playing the president, delaying any kind of ceasefire, is through strength, providing Zelensky and Ukraine the kind of military arms they need, the interceptors for their Patriot systems and more of them, the missiles they need, the long-range artillery, and scorching sanctions in the Graham-Blumenthal bill now on the floor of the United States Senate.
But as you know, that's not
co-sponsors.
I mean, this is not what U.S. policy is under the administration. I mean, they are talking about we will sell weapons to NATO countries, to the EU, and they can give those weapons to Ukraine. But I believe it was J.D. Vance who said we don't want to be in the Ukraine war business any longer. We heard President Trump say that there would be significant consequences if President Putin did not agree to an end to the war at this summit. I want to play just some of what we certainly didn't hear that in this press conference. I want to play some of what President Trump did say at the press conference when he was actually facing Vladimir Putin.
Many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there.
I mean, it seems like if there were going to be some consequences or severe consequences, he could have said something to that effect to Vladimir Putin face to face.
You're absolutely right. He could have said face to face there will be severe consequences. We'll never know, at least for right now, in the short term, whether there was any kind of threat, veiled or otherwise. But I hope Caitlin Collins is absolutely right, that the reaction around the world to this kind of optics triumph for Vladimir Putin will enrage Donald Trump, or at least annoy him enough that he will support more sales of the military. You're absolutely right. It is through those sales to the Europeans that they are transferred to Ukraine, but there has to be more production of them in the United States, and the kind of sanctions against China, India, Brazil that will convince them they should stop buying Russian oil and gas, which would cripple Putin's economy. The way to stop fueling that war machine is through bone-crushing sanctions such as we have in the Graham-Blumenthal sanctions bill, again, supported by 85 members of the United States Senate on both sides of the aisle. We could pass it overwhelmingly as soon as we get back, and I hope we will.
Senator Blumenthal, thanks so much. I appreciate your time. I want to bring in our panel here.
Let's bring in Peter Baker, MSNBC political analyst and chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, and MSNBC international affairs analyst and former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul. Ambassador, thank you for being here in studio. You get the first question. Anything that Vaughn reported there, does that stand out to you as unique, interesting? What comes to mind?
Well, I think it's a good thing that they're talking about security guarantees. That was not talked about with Putin. President Trump for a long time has not talked about that. I think that format of Zelensky with the European leaders, I think that's a good one. So it's not just Zelensky and Trump. We've known what's happened with that from time to time. So that's good news. But the devil's in the details. When he kept saying NATO-like security guarantees, why not just NATO security guarantees? So this notion that it's going to be something like NATO, but less than NATO, if I were the Ukrainians, that would make me nervous. They had one of those, by the way, in 1994. It was called the Budapest Memorandum, and it meant nothing. It didn't stop Putin from invading in 2014. It didn't stop him from launching his full-scale invasion in 2022. So good news, they're talking about something that's a necessary part of a long-term, credible end of this war. But the bad news is that it's something NATO light, when in my view, it should be NATO. To me, that's the way to real credible security guarantee is membership in NATO.
So, Peter, you are still there in Alaska. You're wrapping up the reporting. Beyond learning President Zelensky is expected in D.C. on Monday, what more have we learned about the actual meeting between Trump and Putin? And anything verifiable or behind the scenes to report from either side?
Well, look, what we've learned, especially in the hours this morning, is that the president gave up his demand for a ceasefire. Remember, what we're talking about now, when we talk about security guarantees and so forth, this meeting with Zelensky, this is for a broader peace agreement that would be more enduring down the road. But that's not going to happen overnight. That's going to take a long time. You heard President Putin say, I was in the room with him yesterday, he said we have to address the root causes. When President Putin uses the phrase root causes, what he means by that is NATO retreating back to its 1997 borders before its expansion. What it means is Kyiv giving up a lot of its military. What it means is Kyiv giving up a lot of its territory. These are not things that are going to happen overnight. What President Trump came into Alaska saying he wanted was an immediate ceasefire to halt the killing right away. And then he left Alaska not only without that ceasefire, but giving up on it. A complete reversal in just a few hours of time, the kind of which we don't normally see in international diplomacy. And that means that what Vladimir Putin got out of this summit meeting is not only the nice photo op on the red carpet and in the presidential limousine. What he got out of it was essentially a free pass to continue the war for an indefinite amount of time without the severe consequences that Trump said he would impose if there wasn't a ceasefire.
Mm-hmm. Ambassador, I want to add, Axios is reporting a difficult phone call post-summit with Zelensky. How do you interpret these developments, and are you hearing anything from Ukraine?
Well, I think Peter's absolutely right that Putin won the framing of the negotiations and what comes next, and Trump just gave up really quickly. Shockingly so. It kind of reminds me of Helsinki when he just accepted Putin's point of view about what happened in the 2016 elections. Mm-hmm. And that creates problems for Zelensky, because Zelensky, the list of things that Peter just listed, that's not going to happen, but not anytime soon. I would say not anytime ever. The idea that Ukraine, President Zelensky, is going to unilaterally leave positions in Donbass that his soldiers are in right now, that sounds absurd to me. Putin has been trying to conquer Donbass since 2014 and has failed. And now he's trying to get Trump to help him to do that. And so the idea that they're going to negotiate over that the Ukrainians are going to leave territory that they're currently in exchange for a ceasefire, that just seems completely untenable to me and suggests to me that this negotiation is going to be long and tragically probably not very successful.
Peter, Trump spoke to Fox News after the Putin meeting, and the Times headline reads, after summit, Trump heaps praise on Putin in Fox News interview. What struck you from that interview? Anything concerning or illuminating?
Well, what Trump said in that interview when he praised Putin was really that Putin praised him. That's what he was focused on. He brought up with him, without being asked, how happy he was to hear Vladimir Putin say in their public appearance that he agreed with Trump's longstanding assertion that the invasion of Ukraine, the full-fledged invasion of Ukraine in 2022, wouldn't have happened had Trump still been president. That was just music to Trump's ears. He also said, whether this is actually true or not, we don't know because it happened behind closed doors, but he said that Putin agreed with him that the election in 2020 had been rigged. He agreed with him on all of these grievances that Trump has articulated over the years. In other words, Putin, who is a former KGB officer who used to be in charge of managing, foreign assets, was playing to put Trump's own sensibilities. And that's by Trump's own description in that interview.
So can I ask you, Peter, why no questions after the meeting? I mean, is it because maybe Putin didn't want to face tough questions from the U.S. media, and so Trump complied?
That's a really good question, because it was advertised as a news conference, and that was not a news conference. What it was two statements meant, offered seriatim, one after the other. In fact, what was really odd about it was that President Trump, who was the host of this meeting, let President Putin go first. That's not the protocol, as Mike McFaul, of course, as an ambassador to Russia, knows quite well. And by allowing Putin to be the first to speak, he got to frame, the meetings that they had just had. And they took no questions. Now, it wouldn't be surprising if the Russians said they didn't want to take questions, but it was a tell that President Trump didn't take questions, because even if he didn't take questions with Putin at his side, it would normally be the kind of thing he might do where he would talk to the reporters on the plane or talk to reporters separately or whatever. The fact that he didn't, when he usually likes to talk to reporters and success and victory, suggests that perhaps he wasn't comfortable doing that. It's really not clear. The only person he did talk to was Sean Hannity, who of course is supportive of him, and I think that was an interesting moment.
So, Michael, getting back to the no ceasefire, let's work toward a peace agreement aspect of this whole deal. It seems to be a gift to Putin, right? There's no immediate further sanctions. It lets Putin keep on with his military assault of Ukraine.
Yes.
So in that measurement, the meeting is a failure, right? I mean, it's not a 10 out of 10, as the president claimed. How do you see it?
Well, it's definitely not, in my view, a 10 out of 10.
We got to understand something very, very clear here. That Donald failed and that everyone saw it. Everybody noticed that he didn't achieve anything. If anything was achieved, it was, one, the legitimization of Vladimir Putin. Because, guys, I got to remember, on the one hand, you got to remember, he is president of one of the world's most powerful countries, the literal biggest country in the world by land size. And so it's not like Trump is legitimizing some far-right media figure by giving him an interview, that sort of legitimization. But do remember that Putin is wanted for, like, war crimes, right? Like, if he landed in the wrong country, or maybe in the U.S. with a different president, they may well have arrested him to bring him up on international war charges. It's sort of like Trump's other buddy, Mr. Netanyahu, who is also an internationally wanted war criminal, and if he was to land in the wrong countries, they'd arrest his ass too. And so Trump just allowing, not only welcoming him, but welcoming him onto a U.S. military base, making American soldiers literally roll out the red carpet for him, it was awful. And so he legitimized Putin as not a violent warmongerer who's committing war crimes, but also he helped to justify some of Putin's positions around land acquisition and whatnot. And I don't know what Ukraine is thinking behind the scenes. I'm not an expert on this, and obviously I'm not privy to classified information from any of the U.S., Russia, or Ukraine. So I don't know what the actual discussions are, but Trump should understand, as the businessman, quote unquote, that you don't start selling yourself out in the negotiation phase. And if you're already saying we're willing to give up this chunk or that chunk, you've already lost. And Donald, you did lose.